Hi, we have Frederik Bisbjerg, Chief Digital Acceleration Officer and Executive Director, Digitalization and Innovation of Daman National Health Insurance Company, joining us live from Abu Dhabi. And then we have Jonathan Rawling, the CFO of Yella Compare, who is here with us today here. Thanks, Jonathan. We have Nicola Gorelli, the CEO of, Chief Executive Officer of Bima. Welcome, Nicola. And we also have Yusuf Amin, the Executive Vice President of Consumer Lines, Abu Dhabi National Insurance Company, who is also joining us virtually from Abu Dhabi. Thank you, gentlemen, for participating in this. And let's kickstart this discussion as to the Insurtech, what's in it for tomorrow. Thank you. The previous session was about the trends that's emanating in the insurance industry, and the following session is all about what would make this trend work. Is a very important discussion that we are trying to have here. It's about what is Insurtech 2020's preparation for the future. To start with, let's say that there's been a lot of changes over the last few years, and what do we see as the biggest development that we have seen in the insurance industry? And I would like to pose this to Frederik, who has been the author of Insurance Next as well, and he has been on the social media continuously talking about it. So Frederik, would you want to take that and tell us?
Yeah, I'd love to, and thank you, and good afternoon, everybody. I think if you take a look at the insurance industry and how it has developed over the last couple of years, even pre-COVID, is that the insurance industry has really started to pick up on two things, or three things actually. The understanding of that the legacy systems, the IT systems, had to change in some way or another. And I mean, talking about this is a completely different topic, but there has been change initiated in the core systems from the insurance companies, and especially how, and this is the next topic, because the insurers also started to realize that they need to partner with external parties to can I say survive, or at least thrive more than they did before. So they had to find a way of opening up their systems, or opening up the way that they acted in the markets to include partners in their distribution models, in their operational models either. And the last thing, of course, if you're going to do that, if you're going to look at how you change your systems, if you're going to look at how you change the way that you work with partners, you also have to look at how your operating model is. How do you work internally with the people? How do you look at your culture, and how do you deal with the resistance to change that you will face when you start doing things in a different way? So I'd say that over the last couple of years, we'll see insurance companies, they've started understanding that systems, they have to change, and they probably have to change now. And a way of winning in the future is also partnering up with external parties from outside the incumbent industry. And all this requires changes to the talent base and changes to how you work internally in the insurer. Thank you.
That's great. That's great. It leads us to the next important player in this market, which is the insurer themselves. And none better than to have one of the largest insurance companies, Mr. Yusuf Amin from ADNIC. How exactly is the insurance industry, do you believe, is ready to accept this change or adapt to this change? And what has been your contribution as one of the leaders in the industry been for this?
Yeah, thanks, Siri, and thanks to the conference organizers. Look, I think before I actually respond to that question, I'd just like to say that, we're obviously seeing a big growth in the overall ecosystem of our industry, which means we are seeing entry of new players like Insurtechs, which are obviously going to affect how this ecosystem works. This luxury, by the way, was not available for us maybe a few years back. So obviously, the use of new technology, specifically in the insurance sector, is really going to affect the way that we do business. There's going to be more focus on digital customers externally, and then, of course, internally, digital workers. There'll be new risks to insure. I mean, electronic vehicle insurance was quite a challenge a few years back, but now we're talking about driverless vehicles. So obviously, everybody after the post-COVID, or at least during COVID situation, everyone has been trying to get on board the digital transformation bandwagon. But what sort of planning have they done around that? And around, of course, more importantly, between all of these developments, it's the results of the publicly listed companies, which is quite important because they continue to grow on a year-to-year basis, which means that we have the opportunity to invest in technology for the future. So obviously, these are important factors to take into consideration. Another area that I would like to mention is that the role of the regulator, which is very, very supportive, because they came out with a roadmap in 2018, whereby they said they're going to be publishing regulations around 11 key areas, whether it's related to e-commerce, blockchain, driverless vehicles, bank assurance. So obviously, if the regulator is not supportive, if they're not helping us to create that ecosystem, it becomes very difficult for companies to thrive. I mean, if you recall, before COVID, it was highly difficult to actually interact with people apart from specific, technologies like Botim and the likes. But now everybody is talking on Zoom. So obviously, there's a regulatory change that has happened, and obviously that's going to help insurance companies. As far as our own plans are concerned, yes, of course, we're taking we're obviously understanding that these challenges are going to be there. But then, of course, we're also understanding that, look, the nature of customers are changing. And obviously, that means companies like ADNIC, especially the established players, have to adapt to those changes because the nature of these customers are changing. So obviously, we've got plans. We are at an advanced stage of execution for some of our technology plans. And of course, we have invested in new technologies. We're investing in our infrastructure, we're investing in our systems so that we're able to take up the challenge of these new customers.
That's great. That's great. You touched upon a very important topic called the regulators' involvement in it, and I believe the regulators are doing a fantastic job there. Proactive of issuing the draft e-insurance regulations almost a year ago and talking about it at various forums, and then finally culminating it with the actual law being promulgated in May 2020. I think that's a great initiative and a great start. That's right. Having said that, I think one of the key initial movers with regard to Insurtech is the gentleman sitting to my left. Yella Compare has been one of the at the forefront of the change and pushing the change in the market. Of course, we have other colleagues as well who were there at the dais before us. What do you think are the key technological innovations that we can foresee in the year 2020 and thereafter?
You want me to talk about tech? I can't work the mic, right? So probably I'm the wrong guy. Thank you for the question. So the question, I think, is what do we see coming?
Yes.
Before I get to that, I'd just like to pick up on one of the fellow panelists' point. Is we're talking about change in insurance. What we actually should be talking about is changes in customer behaviors and what do customers want and why is that different.
That'll be the next.
So probably where we are right now is we shouldn't kid ourselves into thinking that we're driving this change. We're responding to this change as an industry, and probably we're not responding fast enough collectively. So what can I see coming? Firstly, I think we spoke about it in the previous panel. I think insurers are, to a great extent, getting to grips with their legacy systems so they can work with players like us and other players that are around. But I think that progress is relatively slow. It's definitely not quick enough for the customer. So what the customer might see as an online journey right now, there's a lot going on in the background. What I do think we'll start to see is as we get a grip on these legacy systems, we'll start to see more and innovative products coming into the market, which is really good. We've spoken a lot today about this region being one of the most underpenetrated for insurance sort of anywhere in the world. And then I was thinking a little bit, why is that? And it's probably because we make things really difficult. So we couldn't issue any kind of policy right now without there being physical paper, without there being a stamp, all those things. Well, that's changing a little bit, right? But it's probably, if you think about the unit economics of a PA product or those low-ticket items, you actually cannot do that unless you have really good systems to support that, and then it's pretty much flow through.
I think we are coming to a era where we are going to be like unbundling products, making it much more sachet-sized, and reintroduce it in the market, which is acceptable to consumer behavior, actually. I think that's what is going to be the future. I do agree that. Having said that, I think Nicola has done something which has not been done so far in this industry, which they've been like talking about it, but not actually effectively implemented it, and he has been bold enough to like do that at Bima, which is like a usage-based insurance. What do you say has been the response for this, and how do you expect this to change in the coming years as well?
No, that's very interesting, because I'm bringing a perspective of someone who is coming from much more a technology background than an insurance background. And I also believe that technology will be a fundamental element to respond to new customer needs, driven by and supported by a strong technology support. This is what we are trying to do with Bima. And if I were to look at the future and the areas where I believe technology and change will impact the most, I would probably identify 5 areas. So one will be pricing. Clearly, what we have seen in the last few years was an improvement in pricing accuracy. That was across the entire industry. In the next few years, I believe we will see a completely different evolution of this pricing accuracy, bringing pricing to an extreme customization. That will require data harnessing, much richer data. It will require combining information and databases from multiple sources, not necessarily only from the insurance companies, but pricing, yeah, that is a clear area where technology will be applied in a very important way. Another element will be operations automation, direct impact in the bottom line. In the past few years, the entire industry has been challenged with the need of reducing operational cost and becoming more efficient. I mean, the cost to serve that is being applied still across the region is oftentimes too high. And if we look at experiences in Europe or in the US, we can see that majority of the players are trying to reduce that component and to become more efficient. There is plenty of technology to do that. Of course, understanding the customer, the processes, and artificial intelligence to make sure that we are always more direct with the customer, and that the operators, in case we still have to have a human components, are more active and more efficient, will be an important portion of the technology evolution. Marketing effectiveness, I would say, is the third one. There we can also do quite a lot. The way we market product and the way products have been marketed in the past few years was a lot through indirect network, and is still through indirect network. I think that there is a huge opportunity for improving the way we reach customers in a more automated, segmented, and targeted way, and there only technology can support. The fourth point is technology that is able to enable ecosystem plays. So I think that few of our speakers touched upon that in the previous minutes. It is insurance will be going towards an always more integrated play with additional players, and technology which will be able to enable that interaction with openness, with API integration brought to extreme, will be very important for transferring to customers a higher value, which is in the end what they really want. And the last point, so the fifth point that I see, is technology able to enable additional services around insurance. So the ability to package insurance with other value-add elements will also be something that we'll be seeing always more, and it is something that it is fully now in the roadmap that we're trying to achieve.
Very well said. Actually, you touched upon two important aspects. One is the legacy systems, and another one is the ecosystem. Ecosystem seems to be the buzzword today. Given that background, do you think that Insurtech can create the ecosystem itself in its related industries, or it'll only be a subset and be an embedded part of a bigger ecosystem? Where do you think Insurtech would be fitting into it? Would we be in a position to take the lead in certain segments, or would we be just one of the embedded components with the bigger ecosystem? Frederik, do you want to take a shot at that?
I'd love to. I think it's a either or, and either and or. I am. You should be able to hear me, right?
We can hear you.
Frederik,
Yeah,
you're not
I thought so. Okay, I'm getting mixed signals here. Somebody can hear me and somebody cannot hear me.
We can hear you.
Okay, let's
Okay,
get
but I don't think
back.
Sweden.
Meanwhile, Frederik, you're not audible.
Sweden cannot hear me.
Nicola can take this as further to the earlier question. How do you think that will Insurtech will be able to establish its own mega ecosystem, or will it be a part of another mega system? Where do you see this going?
No, that's a very, very interesting question, and it entails the definition and the shaping of the value chain. So I fundamentally believe that the value chain is changing, and the shape that it will take in the coming years will not be uniform and unique across all the products and across all the geographies. So I think that there will be always a closer collaboration between Insurtech players and carriers at different levels of the value chain. The integration and the level of extent to which the collaboration will play, as I was saying, will change depending on the products and depending on the readiness of the Insurtech players that will be in the market. I can give you the example of what we are doing. For example, we decided that we didn't want to play, at least for the first few years, on the carrying side, because the UE market, unfortunately, is a small market, and it is very difficult to be able to manage capital effectively and with the best talents and with the best, let's say, methodologies and also with the best results by remaining focused only in the market. And so this is why many of the carriers reinsure large part of the portfolio, even proportionally. So we decided up front that we didn't want to adopt that strategy, and that we wanted to cooperate with existing carriers closely to build something unique, but exclusively designed across the new customer needs and brought to market in a completely different way. In the ecosystem that we built, in the value chain that we built and that we will continue building, this concept of having a different shape of the value chain is always present. And I believe that the way the industry will be moving, the way I'm seeing the industry moving, for example, in Europe with the OEMs partnering always closely with insurance company, with reinsurance company in few cases, with a multi-broker and MGA structure, is basically what we should expect in the coming years. So a bit less of a well-set, fully integrated value chain, and a bit more a magmatic setup where insurance players, agents, brokers, Insurtech players overall will need to be able to cooperate and to integrate different pieces to be successful at best.
So I think what you're telling me is the capital that is going to be, the risk capital that's going to be available is going to be like changing, the landscape is going to change in the coming years. Are we going to be like having digital MGAs going forward? And what will be the traditional insurers' take on this? How comfortable would they be if there's going to be direct access to reinsurance capital coming in by way of digital MGAs that Nicola is talking about, and which we are also watching for quite some time now? Yusuf and Frederik, I think
Frida.
being underwriters, what would be your take to having a digital MGA going forward? And would you be interested in one such arrangement?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like
Gentlemen,
to say
you're not audible.
Yeah, so I mean, from an Insurtech perspective, I'd just like to respond to the earlier question about whether Insurtechs should have their own ecosystem or they should be part of an insurance ecosystem. Look, Insurtechs, in order for them to survive, would definitely need to be part of an insurance ecosystem, which obviously includes insurance companies and solution providers, and of course Insurtech companies. The key thing over here is the value proposition that they're going to be bringing on board. Whether that's of interest to insurers, obviously that is something that's going to drive their growth. But then at the same time, it puts a challenge to insurance companies, because a lot of times they are not very well prepared to absorb these technologies into their own IT ecosystem. So it sort of addresses a point that Fred raised earlier about legacy systems, and also sort of feeds into some of the surveys that were recently carried out in more developed economies. Like, for example, E&Y recently conducted a survey among Australian insurers, and they found that more than 81% were not prepared to absorb technologies being offered by Insurtechs. Now, what does this mean? It means that, look, even though you have companies that are offering viable solutions to insurers, it's the level of readiness that's not available, which is preventing insurance companies to take the full benefit of these solutions and ultimately pass it on to their customers. And that's why it's very important that companies should continue to invest in their IT infrastructure in terms of their IT architecture and landscape, so that they can easily absorb and promote these solutions. So, of course, at ADNIC, we have partnered with an Insurtech company more than a year back, and it's related to motor recovery. It's worked out very well. It's been a fruitful relationship. We continue to be the largest, we continue to have the largest transaction count on that platform. But time, we're finding that a lot of other companies are reluctant to join because of either it doesn't fit into their roadmap, or of course the level of readiness of their IT systems is preventing them to really take advantage of these solutions. So I think that's something that's definitely something that should be considered by companies, because if they don't start investing now, it will really prevent future growth.
Do you think that the insurance companies...
Just a question. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Am I audible, Sridhar?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
No, that's wonderful. I think I agree with most of what's been said now. I just think it's also worth the while to take a step back and look at what a potential future could be. I see most insurance products as a future byproduct, which means that it will be sold as an add-on to any other product of pardon my French here, any other product of value. So whenever you buy a TV, then that specific TV insurance would be sold as an add-on. Whenever you buy a car, it's going to be a natural part of that car purchase, whenever you buy, and so forth, right? So I think if you're looking at it, and I think that's the way we're going, because honestly, people don't want to buy insurance, right? It's a lot of money, and they hope they're never going to use it, and it's difficult to understand. So if when they're shopping for something that is relevant and interesting for them, they can tick a box and, oh, by the way, then they don't have to worry about it. They will do so. So if you're looking at it into that perspective, then what should insurers and insurtechs be working with? They should be working with making themselves as, sexy as possible for these platforms or providers who are actually selling the products that the customers they're interested in buying. And that means that the distribution method is going to change completely. And as Joseph said also, it really demands a lot of the insurer's own IT architecture, because now it's all about being extremely nimble in the way that you connect to partners that some insurers today are starting to learn with the current comparison platforms, right? But this, in my perspective and in my best guess for the future, is going to be taken to the extreme, because you see in India with Amazon starting to be interested in insurance, and it's just a question of time, right, before they go all in, and I would suggest or expect Google to do something similar, and maybe even Netflix. I mean, you don't know, but you have these giants who have extreme contact to the end users. Why wouldn't they? Flick of a switch, right? If they find the right partners. So it's up to us as an industry to find out where is our place going to be in that. And to me, that's of course a broader discussion, but also something that we need to start thinking about, because I guess it's coming. It's a question of not of if, but when. Thank you.
Great stuff, great stuff. Actually, what you touched upon is very relevant, actually. Part of the question was like, since the distribution landscape is going to alter big time, the so-called walls are now going to crumble going forward. You're going to talk about embedded insurances, you're going to be talking as add-on covers and things like that. Given this scenario, why would you be a big supporter of the reinsurance capital coming in directly, or would you be interested in like companies like Adnic and others who are big enough and who now believe in this journey? Because people on this, the gentlemen on this dais, will all be interested in knowing that, because for simple reason is we are all digital distributors on in the market, and if Adnic and for even Daman for that matter would be interested in like providing the risk capital, the product could come from us, the administration could come from us, a viable product. Would the industry, is the industry ready to adopt this change?
Yeah, look, I mean, look, if it's a feasible, viable product which is possible under the current regulatory framework, I'm sure companies would definitely have a look at it, for sure. I mean, on another point, and just of course taking it forward from what Fred was saying, look, the nature of the consumers are definitely changing. One of the challenges in this for the insurance industry has been historically low penetration rates. The per capita spend has been low. As per a study I saw recently, I mean, in 2018, the average insurance spend was around $1,400 in the UAE. But the good thing is that it's expected to grow up to $3,000 by 2030. So that means this segment has actually got a lot of potential. That means companies would need to come up with products which are going to be catered specifically for this type of customer. There will obviously be a distinction between a retail customer and a corporate customer, and probably things may not change significantly on the corporate side, but definitely on the retail side, we see a lot of scope, a lot of opportunity for companies to deliver, and more importantly, to take advantage of the huge capabilities that have emerged over the past few years in terms of new technology. I mean, see how this system has been growing, how this ecosystem has been expanding. I mean, in 2011, as you recall, IBM Watson won Jeopardy, and post that, there's been a huge explosion of technology, and technology that really works, right? So, and that's very important for companies small and big, because ultimately this sector has been trying to improve operational efficiency, improve its competitiveness, and we would not be able to do that unless we really start investing in technology and taking benefit of the value proposition that is now available thanks to Insurtechs.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and I agree, but it also boils down to again, as you touched upon, the question of what's going to be insurers' place in the market in the future and Insurtech's place in the market in the future. If you allow me to ramble on this platform thing with Amazon and the likes, right? So what you're saying, which I think is very right, is that now insurers probably have to go back to the core competences and designing the best possible products at the best possible price and with the best possible cover. And whether that is based on capital or reinsurance, well, that depends on the product, I would guess. So the insurers who is going to win in the future are the insurers who can find the right combination of products and then have them distributed through the right channels. And this is also where I see in insurtechs and insurers to a high degree can actually successfully work together, right? Because there's a lot of insurtechs who will offer these easy connectivities to the platforms or plug-and-play solutions that the platforms also can utilize. And that shouldn't necessarily be something that insurers in the future should be focusing on. My 2 cents. Thanks.
That's true. Jonathan, having been a long-term player in the insurtech space in UAE, you've seen quite a rough journey of the insurers' adaptability to the changing environment and things like that. What do you see is going to be what exactly is Yella Compare or you're going to be like looking to us in terms of developments that you would want to increase the market penetration?
Yeah.
And second part of the question is, there's a large segment of uninsured population that's not being touched upon.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do you think is going to be the biggest way forward on that?
Okay, so on the first question, which I think is about penetration and how do we increase it, I mean, there's literally 2 ways, right? We either charge the people that are buying already more for the same thing, or we have new products that they can, engage with. And I completely agree with what Frederik said. I think we shouldn't think of insurance as an ecosystem in itself. I mean, every insurance product you buy is somehow parasitic on some kind of other behavior, right?
That's true.
You don't have a car because you bought car insurance, right? It's absolutely the other way around. And so how do we increase that penetration? It really is through increased product depth. And a lot of that is not just about putting products out there and thinking, hoping that customers buy them. We've got to give people much more, or give customers much more flexibility to sort of design their own product schedules. So what I'd really like to see at some point in time, and we haven't designed this yet, is I'd like to be able to get people to fill in a sort of a self-assessment. This is what I do, these are my things. Huh?
Hyper-personalization.
Yeah, exactly. And why shouldn't it be? I mean, there are some people that do martial arts as a sport, right? None of their current products cover that. But no insurer is going to start that as a standalone product because there isn't the money in it, right? So, but we need to have these things that can increase. Now, going to your other question about the underinsured, then we get back to the question of unit economics. Because if you have a low-income worker or a low-income family, there's no access to insurance right now because insurers can't issue that product in any kind of way that makes sense at a combined ratio level, just because the cost of acquiring that customer is so high. So this is where actually online can come in, and we can distribute these things really well, but then we need the insurers to support with those products so that we can go to those markets.
That's great, that's great. Actually, it leads me to the next logical question to both the gentlemen over here. Is like, you would have done extensive studies before you entered the market, considering that the market over here is the insurable market size. Given the insurable market size in UAE, do you think that it is viable to have all these kind of like innovations and technology-driven solutions? Is it really worth it in the sense that given the you yourself said that you parked the talent pool and you're not unleashed that. Is it viable enough to like have such an ecosystem here in a country like UAE? Because there is, I'm sure like when VCs, Series A, Series B are being raised by various companies, the first and foremost question is what is the scalability and what are the expansion programs that you generally have? Do you have a big insurable market here? That's where I brought in the uninsured segment as well, because that is close to around 50% of the population, which currently is not addressed at all.
Maybe I can take it. It's a very, very valid point, and I can take it because I come from the VC world. No, I spent before starting up BIMA. BIMA started as an effort from the fund I was managing, which is the Corporate Venture Capital Fund of the Boston Consulting Group. We selected. I was based in London, so we selected the UAE, and we selected to launch BIMA in the UAE because we did believe that there was the opportunity of not necessarily creating scale in the country, but the regulatory environment that is present, the multicultural setup that we are finding here, the willingness of people to experiment is something that we thought and we believe, and I can confirm that this is what we found after a year of operations. We thought that was extremely valuable for building an excellent product, testing it at scale, and then using the country to kind of a test bed to scale in other geographies. So it is very important that, and I believe for people building products in the UAE, to build products which are scalable also beyond. Because as you were rightly saying, if we limit the focus to the UAE market, it's an interesting market, but it's small. So you will never be able to get the level of scalability that is required by international VCs to actually looking into in a proper way. So using the UAE as a great test bed for developing new features, for understanding the customer needs across a multitude of diverse people, and then exporting something scalable in other countries, I believe is a viable strategy, and is basically what we're trying to achieve.
That's great, that's great. So what you're actually telling me is you have to look at the region as one single marketplace going forward, then it becomes viable to actually, that's very interesting.
Not necessarily only in the region. I mean, if you look at, for example, when you design a product here for, we tend to look at an hyper-segmented way, at the market in a very segmented way. So if you design a product that is appealing to different segments of the Indian population here, it is quite likely that you can export it to at least a certain number of Indian states in the coming years. No?
Yes.
So that is what I really believe is the power and the interest of the UAE market. So flexibility, a good regulator that is creating and fostering an environment where we can try, and at the same time a diverse population that basically creates the ideal test bed to try and then export.
Okay. Do you think that, Jonathan, given that you're in the distribution space, would you be interested in having products which are portable, more so in the life insurance segment? Because you have a big expat population here, and one of the biggest challenges of increasing the penetration over here. And how do you think technology will play a big role? That's where, because when you're talking about portability and you're talking about digital ability, I think that's one area where we can expand the market. Uninsured market can also be insured. What do you think will be the way forward on that?
So I think it's a good idea. I can see that the significant limitations on that are firstly, as soon as you get into cross-border portability and you can take a product somewhere else and different tax regimes to take into account, you're kind of edging back towards where you actually need some personal advice for that one. So I would be reluctant to put that online right now because I don't know the tech behind it. Okay. Can it work? Absolutely. I mean, you can reach those people. I could reach those people all day, every day. But it's then, how would we, even if we had the product, how is the insurer going to administer that cross-border? Can it be done? Yes. Is there an insurer that is in the right places right now that could do it? I'm not sure.
Well, we're talking of Insurtech, so it should be possible, isn't it? There has no boundaries.
It's possible to distribute it. That's not the problem. Exactly. Manufacturing the product is actually more difficult in that case. That's
where the reinsurance capital coming in directly would be a big help there. Okay, where we can access various products as well. That's great. That's great. What would you advise the insurance industry as the key? The technology, the changes that they would have to do in the immediate future, because you're more in the distribution side of it. I'm sure you would have some sort of heartburns when it comes to servicing side of it.
So in immediate future, and I always say this, we mustn't kid ourselves as an industry that we're at the cutting edge. We're not at the cutting edge, we're catching up. So let's keep catching up first. We talked earlier on about APIs and things like that. I mean, this is kind of basic. If you're in Europe, we wouldn't be talking about APIs. Nobody in Insurtech conferences talks about APIs, right? Here, we're not there. And I think someone mentioned earlier on, even when there are APIs in this country, quite often, I mean, sometimes we look at the documents and go, "What? That's just not going to do what you think it's going to do." So we've got to get better at these things. We've got to have SLAs, and we've also got to have people that care in the sense that they want to deliver these things. We still have some reluctance in tech departments, I think, in insurers in this region. You know, do you really want to change this? Because if we stay like we are, then we've all got jobs and it ain't kind of working. So there's
I can relate to.
a mindset change needed.
I can relate to it. I can relate to it. I am sure my friend Frederik would be able to like respond to that. There's an interesting conversation that we had way back in 2015, Fred. A couple of times here in Dubai, where we kind of like were talking about this APIs and things like that, and I recollect a scene way back in 2014 or 15 when they thought that API is a two-page document that's given once and forgotten. So from there, I think we have made quite a few, covered a lot of ground there. We have covered a lot of ground there, and I think
sure.
Sorry.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, even in 2015, I mean, and this is actually one of my key points that I also would like to make, because I think insurtechs and insurers, they need each other, because now the example that you're referring to, it was actually because of you that we finally got together and made the APIs required in 2015, right? And for me, no, that was actually an eye opener, right? Because this is also the way I see insurtechs and insurers. They can work together, right? Because insurtechs come with a quite good value proposition in one part of the insurer's value chain, and since the insurtechs they need the insurers to have business. If they find the right way of working with the insurers, then it is going to be a very, very good partnership, simply because the insurtech can help the insurer to develop towards the future. So I think, and Jonathan is also spot on, right? One of the things that stops many insurers is because the IT department, they don't know what to do, right? They don't know what an API is, to be honest. That has changed now, but many insurers have this situation, and if they know what they are, they don't have the experts in-house who can work with it, which means that they have to look outside, and then they start get worried about the jobs that they have. So it's not only technological challenges that we are having, it is also cultural and organizational challenges. And sometimes when you get this push from the outside that the insurtechs are very good at doing, management and the insurer actually sees, okay, now we have to do something, and then they take the help from the insurtech. So I think there's a lot of synergies between these two business areas. Thanks.
That's great. Finally, thanks to COVID, this has hastened up, and it is now part of the ecosystem within the insurance industry, within the insurance company as well. That's good to hear, actually. Where do you see, from the servicing perspective, Yusuf and Frederik, because that's going to be, delivering can be smart, but the real usage of the product comes when it is needed. And it's a service. What's your take on building up the technologies for enabling and simplifying the servicing aspect of it? Because today, currently, it's not that very desirable when it comes to a claim servicing or a policy servicing as well. So I'm sure as Insurtech, I think there's a lot of ground that is to be covered for the insurance industry, and I believe the Insurtech will play a big role in enabling this. So what does ADNIC or what does Daman would be looking to do that? Because I would believe they're the market leaders in these segments.
Yeah, look, it's a very valid point, because ultimately, service is what drives the insurance industry. But then, of course, technology has its role to play. I think before we embark on trying to adopt any new technology to promote that, we should be asking ourselves two questions, actually. What are the key value drivers that are for insurance companies for adopting these technologies? Is it operational efficiency? Is it customer experience? Is it top line growth, bottom line growth? I mean, is it that we have to be the first in the market? Is it because, hey, one of our competitors came up with a new fancy solution, should we take that on board? This is something that really should be asked right at the start. Secondly, from a practical perspective, the second question that we should be asking is that, look, what's the level of automation maturity within the organization? Is it at a basic level? Is it at a advanced level? Is it at an intermediate level? Before we actually start coming up with these plans, because look, ultimately, if we find that we want to improve our customer experience through introduction of a new technology, but our IT guys come back and say, actually, from a maturity level, we're probably at a basic level. So you're not going to be introducing this technology for the next 3 years, right?
Okay.
So,
I do see that. I do see that.
That's also
I've
where-
been through that. I've been through that. So as closing
That's where you want to
comments.
see the insurtechs come in, right?
Sorry.
I mean, I'm sorry, but just this is where you also see the insurtechs come in, right, and say,
Exactly.
okay, we will actually help you with that part of the journey that you're not mature enough to do yet, and then hopefully at some point, I don't know, you'll find out how to take it in house or keep outsourcing it.
Thanks, gentlemen. What would be your closing comments, each of you? We have probably 90 seconds left. And starting with Nicola, what would you see as the closing comment as the Insurtech, how it is going to change the coming years and thereafter?
Yeah, very briefly, I believe that cooperation across the value chain will be fundamental, and also the point that we touched upon multiple times. So integration of insurance as part of a broader ecosystem or as part of other products and other elements will continue tracing the road for the coming few years.
Okay. Jonathan?
I agree with that. I would add, I think in all things we do, we just need to build everything with the customer in mind, not just how we distribute to him, how we allow him to use that product all the way through the journey.
Ease of doing business. Yusuf, what would be your closing comment?
I think it's the value proposition which is being offered by Insurtechs. They're definitely part of our insurance ecosystem, and they have to come and continue demonstrating their value proposition so that we can take advantage of it. Because ultimately, I feel that it's the solution and the proposition being offered by these companies will definitely help us to improve a better customer experience.
Thank you. Frederik?
I think that we'll stop talking about disrupting the insurance industry and start talking about evolutioning it, or whatever it's called, in evolution instead of in disruption, right? That's what I think we'll see, because now we are mature enough to understand we have to work together and not just go out and banging the disruption drum. That's what I think. Thank you.
I think we are past this concept called disruption. It's now in place. So I believe as a closing statement, what I would say is like Insurtech is going to shape the future in terms of it's going to be a collaborative competition as well. You will find competitors collaborating and also competing in the marketplace. And also the delivery system. It's at the end of the day, it's the customer experience which counts, and which is going to like really push for the penetration that we are all badly looking for. And I think currently the legacy system, which does not allow the market to reach its intended locations, can be reached through Insurtech. I think Insurtech is going to recast the industry in the next 12 to 18 months, and the way the business is going to be done, the way the business is going to be serviced. Thank you, gentlemen, for participating in this conversation, and nice to all have you here with me. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.